Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we're going to be looking back at United's home results against Newcastle, which was a 3-1 win, and a 0-0 draw against Real Sociedad, which took us into the round of 16 of the Europa League. With me today, I welcome back Joe, called at home to Newcastle, but the fact was we were on a pretty poor pretty poor form in the Premier League into that point. Those two disappointing draws against Everton and West Brom really put a hold on our title chase, but got into the game really well. Rashford scoring a fantastic goal past Emil Kraft and Carl Darlow. But we were pegged back in the first half by quite a scruffy goal, but a tidy finish from Saint-Maximin. And then two second half goals from Bruno Fernandes and Daniel James sealed the game, and we managed to see a little bit of Shola Shoretire, which was great to see. Joe, let's talk about firstly the positives. The goals we scored, fantastic. Two really attacking wingers that we've had it felt almost like a 4-4-2 at points, traditional vintage United formation with Bruno basically playing as a false nine. So, I mean, what do you think about the overall performance? Was it more emphatic or something different?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I thought United struggled for 20 minutes, half an hour to get into the game a little bit, to be honest, and that was partly due to. Sorry, I can hear myself there a bit echo. I hope you can hear me all right. I think Newcastle started pretty well, to be honest. They pressed high up the pitch. They were quite energetic, and I think, to be fair, I think it caught United out, because even though Ollie in his pre-match interview said that he expected Newcastle to come and have a go, I think that was probably more tongue-in-cheek sort of mind games rather than I expected them to play quite a low block, and that's why when I originally saw the team, I was a little bit worried about playing with the wingers like we were, because I just thought I wondered how much success they'd have, especially in behind someone like Dan James, for example, traditionally against low block teams. Struggles and doesn't do so well, but I think Newcastle sort of, after United sort of got the first leg out their legs sort of thing, first 20 minutes, half an hour, I think Newcastle, the way Newcastle wanted to play, sort of played into United's hands a little bit, and coming on to United, less space in behind, and as we saw in the first leg against Sociedad, that's what this team loves. It loves space, and it loves space in behind, and I think once United got in front for the second time, 2-1, nice taken goal by Dan James, I think it then did start to become a bit more emphatic. You didn't feel like United were going to let the league go again like they did the first time around. They just looked a lot more assured, and then obviously finishing it off there at the end with a penalty as well, just sort of put a nice gloss on the scoreline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that we did create a few more chances in the second half than the first half. Maybe, like you said, just shaking off a bit of the midweek kind of, lack of energy again.
You want to call it rust, but it's not rust, because obviously you played. I think, I've not played a lot of football myself, but, the experts say sometimes when you played Thursday, Sunday, it takes a while just to get it out the legs sort of thing. Obviously, United had to travel as well, and it's, you're coming off the back of a really good result. Everybody just expects you to go on and pick up where you left off, but never as easy as that. And traditionally, if you look at every team who has to play Thursday, Sunday, it's kind of pattern of games that doesn't fit well with a lot of clubs, I don't think.
No, it's true. And I do remember it being an issue at points whenever we played Europa League football in the last sort of few years. We've struggled in the Premier League, but I think the thing is it was a good second half, and it's something that we see from United. They're always better in the second half this season, or certainly since Ollie's taken over. One positive before we go on to the slightly negative side is, for me, I remember doing the player ratings for this. Nemanja Matic was my man of the match. I think he was involved in the second two goals. He was dynamic. His passing was really progressive and incisive, and he was actually making forward runs. And I think the fact that Fred had a bad game almost highlighted more how good Nemanja Matic has been since he came in with McTominay injured. I mean, do you see him being the starting anchor for the rest of the season, or do you see McTominay and him switching in between if they play two in a pivot, or maybe Pogba comes back? And how do you see it working?
Yeah, I think, look, it's a good thing that he's informed because it gives Ollie options, doesn't it? I don't think you'll see any one of those sort of nail that position down, even Paul Pogba as well as he's playing, because sometimes, as we've seen with Ollie, he'll want Paul Pogba to play further up the pitch. He has employed him as one of those three positions, obviously, further up the pitch. So it's very difficult to see any of them sort of having that spot on a regular basis. I think Scott would have probably played that Newcastle game if he'd have been fit. I think the issue with Matic is as well, his father time seems to have caught up with him all at once this season. You know, first part of this season, he looked really off the pace and sluggish. And I think it's proven that he can't play sort of every week, and certainly not with the schedule that we have at the moment, where we're playing weekend, midweek, weekend most weeks. So it's a real grueling schedule for someone like Matic. But I think the key for his performance against Newcastle is I think at half time he sort of took it upon himself to be one of those players who pushed further forward, just maybe 10, 20 yards further. I think we saw Scott McTominay do something similar against Southampton when we won 9-0 a couple of weeks ago. We obviously played that sort of what people perceive as a defensive double pivot. And I think Scott realised once Southampton went down to 10 men a couple of weeks ago that he had to make the initiative and sort of get further forward. And Matic in this game, I think, either it was spoken about at half time or, you know, someone like Matic who's a professional now and is able to see things in front of him on the pitch, so that the opportunities were probably further forward. And, you know, it's no coincidence that he played quite a heavy part in a couple of the goals. So, no, fair play to him for that. It's not something you associate with him, you know, being an influence in the final third. I mean, if it hadn't been for Bruno's flick, obviously that assist would have gone to him. For Dan James for the second goal. So, you know, good, nicely. But it's good that United have some options there, especially with Pogba injured. You know, if one of, you know, Pogba's injured, McTominay's been injured, if Matic wasn't playing well, United would have a real problem in the centre of the park there, because apart from Fred, who else have they really got? Because I think we've already seen this season, Donny cannot play in that double pivot in the Solskjaer system. I mean, he's not fit anyway. Yeah, he's injured as well. So it'd be a real tricky situation for United. So I'm grateful that Matic is playing well at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was similar against Sociedad. He was equally great with his passing and strong in his challenges. And I love the way he just shields the ball and shoulders people off with his strength. It's just quite aesthetic the way he does it. But something that wasn't quite as nice was our defending from set pieces against Newcastle. And obviously, some of it led to the goal, which was, I mean, it was a set piece that they'd done a few times, just play it short, then whip in the cross. And it was Maguire with a difficult, I'm going to be sort of a little bit more leaning on Maguire because it was a difficult header, but he could have headed it out for a corner. There's the other side. But Fred just totally forgot to mark Saint-Maximin, who had a free shot for, I think, the third time that game. So it is a recurring thing that we keep conceding from set pieces down this season, last season, even the season before as well. Zonal marking has come under criticism. Do you see that being the issue, or do you see it being something else, wrong personnel, or just something that happens?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the only way you solve this is to actually get a proper set piece coach in. I think when you look at around the United coaches setup, there doesn't seem to be anyone who sort of clearly knows the right way of doing this, because, you know, from a coaching point of view, it hasn't got any better. But actually, on these set pieces that United have conceded this season, a lot of them, I'm looking at certain personnel. So there's 2 or 3 examples I could pick out of where I think actual personnel could do better. And sometimes it doesn't matter how much you coach these things, who coaches these things. If players are going to let you down in that crucial moment, they will let you down. You know, we've seen it against Southampton. At Southampton earlier in the season was a major, you know, the set piece from Ward Prowse there, the corner coming at, you know, people just not doing their job. Everton last minute a few weeks ago, you know, Maguire just in no man's land, De Gea not coming for the ball. This one, like you said, against Newcastle, I'm like you, I don't tend to blame Harry Maguire too much. I do agree that maybe he could have headed it for a corner, but he does get a head on the ball. But like you say, Fred's got to be switched on there. And like I say, he'll have been told all the time, look, if you're on Saint-Maximin of all players, you need to be switched on at all times because he's a live wire and you just don't know what he's going to do next. I don't think he knows what he's going to do next a lot of the time. So it's very difficult, but you do need to be alert, switched on when you're marking him. So and then also some people may even say, if you want to be ultra critical, could Dave have come for that? Maybe, is that another set piece situation where De Gea could at least be looking to come and help his defence there? So there's certain things, but I'm looking at individuals, Arjun, rather than a setup. I think United look like a setup all right, but if you look at a lot of the players that are in this team at the moment, when it comes to defending set pieces and certainly aerial ability, there's flaws in a number of these players' games, I think.
No, absolutely. One thing I have noticed is that it's got considerably worse this season, and maybe that's due to the lack of pre-season, not giving sort of that kind of thing being an issue, which you can't really underestimate. It's important for a whole team to gel under pre-season. I think something I saw the other day where it was saying that the pre-season would have nailed down who's the best centre-back pairing for the start of that season, nailed down how the goalkeeper is going to work, who's sort of, developing more or less. It would have shown, if we do definitely, it could have almost certainly said, well, to the board, well, we need a right winger, so please go and buy Sancho, even though, there's so many other circumstances. But the thing is that even then during the season, they should have changed something because they would have seen that there is an issue from set pieces. You'd hope it gets sorted sooner rather than later. Chelsea obviously a very good aerially dominant side. They've got Giroud, they've got Abraham, Rudiger, Thiago Silva.
Zuma's always a threat,
yeah, absolutely. And it's something that obviously Palace have got now. Benteke, is obviously always going to be aerially dominant. Their centre backs are strong. Kiate's a big presence in the box. So it's something that we're going to have to think about. AC Milan, of course, is going to be another one. Zlatan is going to be on top of his game. And we'll get onto that in a second because Sociedad obviously was, we played them on Thursday, and it didn't feel like a dead rubber because you never know how European games are going to go. And so United did put out a strongish team to maybe seal the game off, and we could have easily conceded in the first 20 minutes. Dan James gave away needless penalty, but Oyarzabal decided he wanted to be like Bruno and instead ended up like Jorginho, and he skied it, unfortunately for him. But Bruno hit the post, a couple of good saves from the goalkeeper Romero. I think James's header and Martial had a couple of dipping shots. But United could rest players at half-time, got a chance to give Axel Tuanzebe, Brandon Williams, Amad Diallo and Shola Shoretire some precious minutes. And it also gave Rashford a chance to captain the side on the 5-year anniversary of his debut against Midtjylland. So I thought that was a really nice touch from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Joe, for you, I mean, for me, it was a professional performance. Do you think that maybe we should have been a bit more ruthless? You think about like Bayern Munich going for the kill and something that we've seen over the last couple of years under Hansi Flick. So do you think that maybe we missed a beat there, or do you think that it was the right decision to rest the players?
It's a tricky one. I mean, you talk about people like Bayern Munich there and some of the great teams in bygone eras, even in recent history, would have been ruthless. But you look at our squad, we haven't got a squad like that, to be fair. We haven't got a squad where we can rest 2 or 3 and still have that same intensity. That was the big thing that was missing from me for United. I thought, actually, some of the players actually had decent game. When you look at some individual performances, especially in the back line, I thought there was some encouraging performance. I thought Bailly and Lindelof looked quite good as a central partnership there. It'd be good if both of them could sort of get into some form. I think you look around the pitch, I thought Bruno was obviously Bruno when he was on for the first 45 minutes. And the problem is people will say, well, why did Rashford come on at halftime? Apart from obviously all the captain's thing, which you touched on there, why would you risk bringing him on? But the thing is, if you want to replace Bruno's quality and intensity, the only thing that United had on the bench that could do that was probably Marcus Rashford. Not to necessarily like for like, but just to be able to copy that intensity that he brought to the game, because that was always going to be the worry with a game like Thursday night. Would the intensity be there? And I think you touched on it. First 20 minutes, United were sluggish, and people will say, well, could we rest Bruno? If you take Bruno out of that team, you lose a lot of mentality as well as a lot of quality as well. And if that penalty had gone in and they had a couple of other chances in that first 20 minutes, if it goes 2-0 in the first 20 minutes, then you've got yourself a real problem. And you can't really do anything about it until half-time. So I didn't really have an issue with the team. I thought, Bruno obviously played pretty much in first gear in terms of his energy and his ability. And, then obviously Rashford come on and he did something similar. But just having those players on the pitch just gives you a point of quality to aim for sometimes, and just to let others know about the standards that's expected of you, sort of thing. It's a shame that United aren't in a situation where they can take Bruno out and they can still have that level of quality and professionalism on the pitch, but unfortunately they don't. And the other thing as well is, if you look, all potential replacements for Bruno's position were injured anyway. You look at maybe Donny van der Beek might have took his place. He would have definitely played at least one of the legs, I think, if it had been fit. And then obviously you got Juan Mataru. There seems to be a very strange situation around him at the moment. He had a couple of weeks off, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, and now they reckon he's going to be missing for another couple of weeks. So, strange. But yeah, I think, Ollie's didn't have the selection luxuries that I think a lot of people thought he did.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I think there's might be an echo.
I'll put mine on mute.
All right. I think the thing is that this is still, a top 5 Spanish side. They're capable of attacking really well. They won 4-0 at the weekend against Deportivo, so they're in good form. They didn't make too many rotations either, which is, I think, the big thing. Yarzabal, Januzaj, and Isaac all started. I think David Silva missed it through injury or something. I'm not sure. But they started a very strong side, so you've got to, show a bit of professionalism, and I think you've got to keep a relatively strong side. But then at half-time, it's still 0-0. United are dealing with the attacks quite well. So I think it was okay to allow Bruno to come off, allow Fred to come off. But then we saw Matic play the whole game, which gave a few people an inkling that maybe McTominay would start the weekend, but it looks like he's not available. So it looks like our midfield three is going to be very, very clearly Fred, Matic, and Bruno. And the thing is, we still don't know who the front three is going to be. And Martial obviously played the full match against Sociedad. What do you think of his form of late? Do you think, even though he's in a really bad patch, which Solskjaer has admitted, Martial has admitted himself, do you think that he has to start based on his record against Chelsea, based on the fact that he is our best number 9 available? Or do you see maybe a fluid front three of James, Greenwood and Rashford?
A tricky one, I think at the end of the day, look, if Cavani was fit, I think Cavani starts this game, doesn't he? There's no debate. And I suppose if you ever want an indicator of Martial's fall from grace in this United team this season, is the fact that Cavani came in basically to be back up to him, especially off the back of the fantastic season that Martial had. And, in the space of the 20-odd games that we've had, it's now Cavani's probably the starter and Martial's obviously the backup number 9. And it's a shame. Look, with Martial, you touch on there, he's got a good record against Chelsea. Is that enough to get him in? I'm not sure. I'm just not seeing enough from him at the moment. And then, you like you said, you can look at a front three of Rashford, Greenwood, and James. And if you take those three players in isolation in their individual form, they are the three that deserve to be picked. I think Dan James has been really impressive over the last 3 games that he's played. I'm delighted to see that. I think there's sort of hints that he's added more to his game, if you know what I mean, which is what he needed to do. Like I said earlier, he used to be able to just struggle against low block teams, but I think he's worked on something there and he's improved that side of his game. So I think I won't be surprised if he starts. And just to touch on the fact that Matic, he played again Thursday, so will he be able to play again Sunday? We thought that Scott might be playing, but obviously we hear that Scott's probably ruled out. Ollie did try Axel sort of in that DM position for the obviously the second half against Sociedad. Now, I'm not saying that Axel had an amazing game, but he did look quite comfortable in there, to be fair, and alongside someone like Fred. That just gives Ollie another option, especially if he wants to shore it up a bit more. Obviously, you've got another sort of centre-back that would seamlessly be able to sort of drop into a back three almost when United are defending, something that we've seen work well against Chelsea before, playing a back three, back five sort of thing. So it will be interesting to see what Ollie does. I mean, I'll be very surprised, to be honest, if Matic can do sort of Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, because I just didn't think that was in his legs anymore. And like you, I thought the fact that he was playing Thursday meant that Ollie was optimistic Scott was going to be back, but that doesn't look very positive. So it does make you wonder whether he had a look at that Axel thing just with maybe try it against Chelsea, but it's a big game and it's very risky to sort of put Axel in there from the start. But it's also risky to expect Matic to play 3 games in a week with his age and his injury record recently. So it's a tricky one for Ollie. He'll have to look at it and come up with a plan.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll talk about the team selection in just a bit, but we'll keep on Europa League for the moment. And the draw was obviously on Friday, and so many teams available. We could have got huge clashes available. We could have got Arsenal, Tottenham, Rangers. Roma, Villarreal, and I was thinking the last 5 or 6 teams, there was Rangers, Molde, Sparta Prague, AC Milan, and someone else. I was like, can we please just get Molde? Would be lovely. It'd be really sentimental. It'd be nice. Sparta Prague, obviously they knocked out Leicester, but I think that's because they rested a few players in the King Power.
Yeah.
But no, of course we got AC Milan. Of course we got the most difficult team, the one that's fighting for a title in Italy. Be Zlatan against United, it'll be Dallo against United. So many good players at AC Milan. Joe, do you think this is one of the points that we've got to make, that to win the cup you've got to beat the best teams, so it's just about getting over this next hurdle?
Yeah, let's play the big teams now, and then if we do get to a semi-final again, we might have a semi-final a bit kinder, because we look at Ollie's record in semi-finals, but if you look at some of the opponents he's played in those semi-finals, they've not exactly been walkovers, have they? It's not like we've bottled it against lesser teams. We've had Chelsea in the semi-final, we've had Man City in a couple of those semi-finals, and we've had Sevilla, I think, is the other that makes up the fourth one. But not just Sevilla, but Sevilla in the Europa League, which is a complete different beast, a different animal, it seems. So, hopefully you get through this and it opens up the draw. But, AC Milan will be thinking the same as well. They'll be looking at United thinking we've got one of the strongest teams in it. I think aside from United and maybe Roma, I think we probably got probably one of the toughest teams as well. I do think AC Milan, I think it would have made a great final, let's put it that way. I think United, AC Milan would have obviously made a great final, but it does seem that we get a lot of tricky draws, but I suppose, like you said, if you want to win these things, you've got to play them at some point, so might as well get them early. And I think, United have got a fancy at Dallo there. You say, will he be allowed to play? Because I know he's on loan there, isn't he? Is he still allowed to play or not?
He'll be allowed to play. I think the fact is that the normal cup time rules that meant that Lingard couldn't play against us only apply for English clubs. Because I remember last year in the Europa League, if we were playing Inter, we would have been allowed to face Sanchez, or if we had played Roma, we would have played Smalling. It's allowed European-wise, but it wouldn't have been allowed domestically. So yeah,
like you said, there's some brilliant storylines there. There's some brilliant matchups, and let's see how it goes. I mean, one thing about it is if you take the supporter out of you, which is very difficult because obviously we're bad Man United fans and we only want the best Man United. It's a great game to watch and it'll be a great tie, I'm sure. And I'm excited, but a little bit like you, I am a bit nervous, especially with someone like Zlatan, and you just think about his qualities and the way he can dominate centre halves. He's made a career out of it, and I think, to be fair, if you look at our centre halves, they're not the hardest centre back pairing to dominate, are they? So he'll be looking at that, maybe rubbing his hands and thinking, yeah, I've got a chance here. But we've got a lot of firepower as well, and we've got to use that quick intensity game that we play to our advantage, because AC Milan play in the Serie A. They won't play against teams that are so quick on the transition as United week in, week out. So hopefully, our pace is something that will get us through.
Absolutely. And we'll move on to that in a second. But we've got a question from Ollie Salter.
Are you going to say Ollie Solskjaer? Then I was going to say that'd be good.
If only. No. It's do you think we would beat Sevilla now if we played them in a neutral ground? Obviously, difference of a few months. Sevilla, obviously, in the Champions League, they had a good lead against Dortmund, but it was cancelled out. Haaland and Sancho stole the show for Dortmund. And obviously, Sevilla have had a few issues here and there. 4-0 loss to Chelsea in the Champions League meant that they lost their top first place, and they went second and had to face Dortmund. Do you think that perhaps we're a better side now, or do you think that Sevilla are worse, or do you think that we wouldn't actually have made a difference if we play them now?
Yeah, I think we're a better side. I do think we're a better side. I'm hoping that we're learning from these experiences and everything like that. But I actually don't think this question is anything to do with performance-related, Arden, because if you look at the game, the semi-final, last season, we were the better side. We did everything bar win that game, to be fair. United should win that game. So it wasn't like we looked at Sevilla and thought, actually, they're a level above here. Maybe they were just a bit more savvy when it comes to competition experience, and maybe they knew how to grind out a result in a semi-final more. We could argue that maybe, and then what you would say is that you would hope, like I said, United are better now in that regard, because obviously they've had a lot of semi-finals over the last 12 months, and obviously they've had disappointment. So you would hope that they've learned from those mistakes. But actually, it's a good question, but it's very difficult to tell, because United could play even better than they did in that game and still lose it. So it's tough. And obviously that first game was on a neutral ground as well. Well, that game, obviously, it was in the tournament in Germany, was it? I think it was. So, yeah, so obviously it's tough to tell. But I would like to think that I really want to see this team get to another semi-final. I know it seems daft to say we've already had one this year and not proven we couldn't do it again, but I want to see him get to another semi-final. But I want to see him get to a semi-final and play, a team that maybe they're superior of, and then see because then if they lose that hard, and then that tells me there is a bit of a problem here, because it's very difficult to sort of say, it's something about semi-finals when you look at those semi-final opponents. But, for example, look at the FA Cup, we've got Leicester in the next round. If that was a semi-final, then that would be really interesting, because you look at Leicester, you think, yeah, very good team, but actually a team that United should be beating. It would be on a neutral venue as well. If it was semi-final FA Cup, it would be at Wembley. So, yeah, I think, but until we get to that point, we'll have to see. And look, semi-finals are not easy to get to, and there is something to be said about the fact that we've shown a level of consistency that we've been able to get to semi-final after semi-final. But this is a young team now that has to take that next step, and we'll only know whether they can when they get there again, if you know what I'm saying.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It's just about whether this team can push. And obviously, we're still in two competitions, and it's a good chance for us to get some silverware this season. I think we have to get silverware this season, otherwise, it won't feel like to many. Won't feel like
progress
as we expected. Yeah. So I think it is really important, and I think it will be important to keep some players that may want to leave, and certainly to bring more players into the club, which we'll get on to now, actually, because the poll result we had out on Twitter came back with summer departures. Obviously, loanees like Dalot and Lingard will be returning to the club. There's questions over Mata's future, Pogba's future, of course, and now suddenly also Martial's, De Gea's, and Dean Henderson's. Obviously, the goalkeeping debate has been put into question, saying that Dean Henderson is getting more frustrated with his lack of game time and will move on if he doesn't feel like he will be it. But whereas there are other reports saying that United see Dean Henderson as a starting goalkeeper, and De Gea will be sold with, I think, 2 years left on his deal. Firstly, let's talk about the players that are going to be coming back from loan, Dalot and Lingard. Do you see either of them staying at the club after that, or do you see maybe one moving on? I mean, for me, I can see Dalot being sold, and I could certainly see Lingard staying, but I could also see him being used as used to fund an extra another deal for, say, I don't know, a CDM or a centre back or something. What about you?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can't comment on Dallo too much because I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen a lot of Serie A football. Some of the reports I've heard and seen is that he's actually done okay over there. I think the fee that they've got an option on though is about 25 million euros, I think, for Dallo, isn't it? So that, it'll be interesting to see whether Milan see that as a financially for them, because I know like all clubs around Europe are struggling financially, and that seems like, from the Dallo that I remember, that seems like a lot of money, you know what I mean? But obviously, if he has been, well, for us it would be, but it'll be interesting to see what. Like I say, I haven't seen enough of him play for Milan, so I don't want to judge him. I mean, if he has done really well there and his performances that have, impressed the coaching staff, they could look to keep him, Adrian, because if you look, they are looking for a backup right back this summer. Apparently, that is a lot of the rumours. But, you're looking at people like Max Harrens, who Norwich have said they want 35 million for. You've got Kieran Trippier, who I don't think seems keen on coming back from Spain at the moment. I think he's quite enjoying his life over there. And, I don't know how much he will cost. I don't think he'd be as much as Max Harrens because obviously he's a bit older. But you've got to convince him to come over. If Dallo's developed to a point where he can do a job, then that's maybe an area that United can look to save on a bit this summer, and obviously invest money in other areas of the pitch, because there are a couple of other areas that I think are more desperate than a backup right back for United at the moment. As for Jesse Lingard, I'm sort of in two places with this. It's fantastic to see that he's doing so well. I'm really, really pleased for him. He has been fantastic for West Ham. But I'm sort of old enough to remember him having a few loan spells now, actually, during his time at United. I think he's had loan spells at places like Brighton, Birmingham, Sheffield Wednesday, I think, are a couple of clubs that he's... Yeah, Derby County, yeah. And every time he's been on loan, he's one of those players. I've looked at him while he's been on loan and thought, he's ready to come and have a go in the first team. I mean, granted, when he was on those loan deals, he was a younger lad, and you're thinking he's ready to have a shot at the first team. This would be slightly different. You'd be thinking more now as he resurrected his career to the point where he can be influential in the first team. But I just don't think he will, to be honest. I just think something about him as a United player. I think he's one of those players that feels the weight of the shirt, to be honest. I think he struggles with the whole being a Manchester United and the expectation around him. And I don't think there's any coincidence that when he's gone to clubs with less pressure, he's really thrived. And look, he's 28 years old now. If United aren't going to use him, the only thing he's doing right now is driving his valuation up, that which is a really good thing for United as well, because maybe when they sent him out on loan, he was a £7.5–10 million player. He could come back from West Ham being worth £15–20 million, which again, in a summer where United are looking to do business and are going to have limited finances themselves, that could really help them, like you said, if they want to use his money towards putting towards a new player. So I think it's time for Lingard now to, if he's enjoyed his time at West Ham and they want him to do a deal in the summer and the two clubs can agree a fee, I think it's best for Lingard to stay at West Ham and make something of what's left of his career, because he is 28, like I say, nearly 29. He's not getting any younger. Yeah. He's probably not going to make it at Manchester United. You look at the type of player he is as well, and you think, where does he really fit into the system that Ollie wants to play? You could argue maybe he could replace Bruno, but we know that it's very difficult to replace Bruno because it's not just the position, it's everything that Bruno gives you. And then I don't think Lingard's a winger in a 4-2-3-1 either. So I think he has to go. And like I say, I don't know enough about Dallo, but if he has done well, bring him back, save some money on that backup right back option.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that's really well put. I think you're right about that. The shirt weighs heavy on Lingard. I think the same can be said for Chris Smalling based on his time at Roma.
Yeah.
I think the same also could be said for Andreas Pereira, who seems to be, even though he's at Lazio, he's a bit part player, but he's still, doing well there. I think it would be best for Lingard to go. I mean, you got to say, you think about it and think, well, he could play maybe as a roaming playmaker, but again, he wouldn't get the game time that he's getting right now at West Ham. And I think if it was something like either a straight up fee or maybe some money and some money off, maybe Declan Rice, we go Declan Rice the other way, that would be an interesting deal. But it remains to be seen. There's still plenty of games to play before the summer transfer window starts. It's great to get swept up in all these kind of things, but I mean, there's still a long way away. But
every transfer summer with Manchester United, it's a circus, isn't it? I mean, it'll all start again. I mean, it's starting now, isn't it? The rumours are starting but it makes me laugh when we get United rumours in sort of February, March, April, because when has this club ever shown that it can be proactive and get deals actually done and signed and everything before actual, like you think of Chelsea in the past when they signed Pulisic, ready for the summer, if you know what I mean. I can't think in recent memory when United have done a deal that's just ready-made, ready to go when the transfer window opens. They always wait till the window opens, and then the window just seems to fester on, and late on, United do their business. It's I just don't know why time and time again, and I'm guilty of it myself, we just get wrapped up in all these transfer rumours that we know that actually don't worry about anything until after June the 1st, because this club's not going to do any business till then.
No, I know. I think the thing is that everyone got swept away with the Upamecano rumours, and then immediately, a month ago, Bayern said, yeah, we'll have him, and that was the end of that. And then because when Bayern start getting transfers going, cogs start turning, I think. But it is really only United that are getting linked with players. Maybe you see Liverpool getting linked with the odd player here and there because they're under a bit of a crisis right now, the defensive injuries as well. They're screaming out for a centre-back, but I think they probably won't buy one in the summer if everyone's back fit, because they've just bought two. So there's that. But I think United... Sorry, what were you going to say?
Sorry, I was just going to say Upamecano is a fantastic example you used there, because it was common knowledge that was a player that had been moving in the summer. So that's the kind of deal that when the January window's shut, you can say, look, we've agreed a deal and he'll move in the summer. That's what Bayern Munich have done. And I think if that was the player that United really wanted, then I think, again, you'd like to see them do that way. But you do feel if they were going to sign Upamecano, it was going to actually be in the summer. Well, Upamecano was never going to be available in the summer with Bayern Munich wanted him the way that they did.
When Bayern want a player, they get them. It's pretty much that. There's seldom a point when they miss out on a player. I think probably the one example of that was Alexis Sanchez, and we all know how well that went. So, and let's talk about some of the players that aren't on loan still at the club. Paul Pogba's saga will keep turning. I'm not going to talk about that because we could spend an hour and a half on whether he'll leave or not. But the interesting one is Dean Henderson and David De Gea, because I was still under the assumption that they would still be competing by the start of next season. But certain reports, I don't know how valid they are, have said that there won't be. It'll be one will be left. Romero will renew his contract and be the sub goalkeeper again. And one of them is going to be gone. I mean, for you, A, do you see that being a likely possibility? Or B, would you rather they still compete, but slightly at different levels? Maybe if we're in the Champions League, or De Gea plays in Europe in the Cups and Dean Henderson plays in the Premier League, or maybe a swapped role? Or how would you see it happening?
I think I did one of these shows at the start of the season, Arjun, and I kind of saw this being an issue getting into the season. You look at our goalkeeping situation at the start of the year, everyone says, wow, fantastic. You've got David De Gea, who over the last 5 or 6 years has proven to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Dean Henderson's just coming back to the club after having 2 amazing seasons at Sheffield United, looks $1 million. And you just think, wow, aren't we so lucky to have 2 keepers like that? But what I foresaw from, and I think I've told this story before, seeing Dean play at a local side that I used to go and watch, is he's not the kind of person that's going to just be satisfied with sitting on the bench, you know what I mean? And he's got a history of kicking up a stink at loan spells that he's been on in the past. He's not ever going to be a number 2 goalkeeper for anybody, and rightly so. He's young and he's hungry, and he wants to develop, and he wants to, be a goalkeeper at a top club, ideally Manchester United. That's his dream. But then you look at the other side of it, and you've got David De Gea, and I just think he's a goalkeeper that, at 31, we forget how young De Gea is, because obviously he started his career very young. So, 31 for a goalkeeper, you could argue that he should be just coming into his peak now. Probably David's a bit different because we've seen probably his peak years already, but at 31, that is a peak age for a goalkeeper, and he's certainly not going to be ready to play number 221. So it's that tricky situation that I saw coming for United. I always thought that this next summer, I thought they'd have to make a decision this summer that's just gone, to be fair, but they got away with it, and they look like getting through this season now, sort of managing just about to appease both goalkeepers. But I think the summer's going to be make or break for one of these two. I don't think they can go into next year with the situation as it is, even if you swap it around and make sort of Dean the long-term number one, because I don't think Dave's going to be happy with being sat on the bench either, But it's a real tricky situation because you've got who's going to take De Gea. He's got 2 years left on his contract, so United are going to demand a decent fee, I would say, but somewhere between maybe 20, 30, 40 million. But also the biggest problem is his wages. He's on 370k a week. So what club is looking for a goalkeeper so desperately that they're willing to pay that kind of wages? People will mention PSG, and that's fair enough. I understand that. But if PSG don't win, I think his options are really limited. Real Madrid are probably not 100% happy with Courtois, but they've got bigger fish to fry in other areas of their pitch that they're going to want to address that in defence and going forward. So that interest is no longer there. You look at if somebody maybe took Oblak, there could be an option for him to go back home to Atletico. But again, Atletico aren't going to be able to afford those wages. And who's going to buy Oblak this summer? Probably Oblak's probably the best goalkeeper in the world at the moment as it stands. So he's going to demand a fee of over 100 million. So it's just very, very tricky to see how this gets resolved. But I do think one way or another, United need to, because I think it will become it could upset the chemistry in the team and the squad if Dean's just left there as he's going to start getting uncomfortable with it, and he's going to start making his feelings known, and then other players will either gravitate towards Dean or they'll gravitate towards De Gea. There'll be a real split camp, and then you get issues with team the dynamics in the squad, if you know what I mean, squad dynamics. So it's a tough one, but I'll be fair. I see Dean now at 23-year-old. I think you have to see Dean Henderson as a long-term number one. I do. As much as it's really hard to say that, because David, he kept this club relevant for 3 years between 2014 and 17. The only reason we got into Europe was because of Dave. But I think, I think Dean is a long-term number one. You look at, I think they've got very similar flaws in their game. I think their weaknesses are very similar. I think they both struggle with their feet. I think another thing that they both could do with actually improving is commanding of their area. I think Dean Henderson is quite good at that, but he's still not brilliant. And obviously, I think that's one of Dave's biggest weaknesses.
Yeah.
But I think shot stopping is both. We've got two goalkeepers with similar flaws, which doesn't help because you can't sort of choose what you'd rather have, if you know what I mean. Yeah. But I think at 23, you have to look at Dean. You give him a 6-year contract, you paid him £120,000 a week. That tells me that the club see him as a long-term one. So I think if anybody has to go, it will be Dave. Or, perfect if they can sit down with De Gea in the summer and say, will you sit on the bench? Will you take that cup role like you said, Arjun? Will you do that? But I just don't think he's going to be up for that at 31. If he was 34, 35, potentially, but not at 31.
Yeah, no, you make good points there, actually. But I think the thing is, one thing that I can already foresee happening is whatever happens with the goalkeepers, there will always be criticism going to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as to what he's done. If he ditches Dean and says, we have faith in David De Gea, then the first mistake he makes, they'll be on the back. And if Dean Henderson goes to somewhere he's obviously linked with Spurs and Chelsea and Dortmund and all sorts. If he goes there and has a blinder of a season, criticism. If Dean comes in and he's not as commanding or vocal as David De Gea is, which is something that people don't see, is De Gea is very vocal and he screams at his defenders. If that goes one way, then again, you let go of our brilliant goalkeeper that saved us so many times and times. He's won trophies, he's done all this, he knows how to win trophies and stuff. There'll be that. So it's going to be a fine balance.
Yeah, United can't win either way, Arjun. But on the goalkeeper situation, they must keep hold of Lee Grant, because the way he works that substitutions board is beautiful, and it's worth every penny of that 30,000 a week that he's getting.
Yeah, absolutely. He's become a cult hero, I think, and it's great to see.
Definitely.
Jose's best signing. But yeah, well, I mean, I think that really is it. It's sort of that we've got to find out a way, and I do hope maybe if it's Champions League football, which it's looking like touch wood, fingers crossed, whatever it is. If it is Champions League football, I could see David De Gea saying, "I'll play Champions League week in, week out. I'll play the cups," and Dean Henderson can have the Premier League. Maybe means that De Gea is going to be in the limelight less, and it means something like that. But you never know how things are going. Whatever it happens, one person's going to be.
The ages are a problem, Arjun. The age are a problem. We're not looking at a goalkeeper. I don't think we're looking at a goalkeeper that physically is coming towards the end of his career. There's nothing physically that tells me De Gea can't do this anymore. I just think he's lost something mentally, De Gea, which I think can soon be got back either at this club or if he was to move. Maybe he needs to move. Maybe he just needs something to sort of click. I think of Johnny Evans. We all look back at Johnny Evans now and think, oh, it's nice seeing him doing well at Leicester. You think to yourself, he probably could do a job for us. But if you remember at the time when we sold him, he was making a lot of mistakes. And sometimes these players just need a change of scenery, just a change in their career to be able to kick on and make something and show that they're not actually bad players. And I think that's where Dave is. I think if he was to go back to Spain, I think you could see him flourish again.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd see what would happen. I mean, obviously, it's a long way away at the moment. We can just sort of enjoy the fact that we've got two very good goalkeepers and live in our ignorance just for a little bit longer. Till the end of the season. But we'll move on from that because, of course, tomorrow is a big clash with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, Chelsea are on an 8-game unbeaten run. I think they've drawn once and conceded only 2 goals. We have got the best away run in the Premier League in the club's history and doing really well. But the thing is, something's going to happen this weekend. If we win, we go 9 points clear of, I think, 9 points clear of 5th and 7 points clear of 4th. If we lose, it'll be 4 and 3 points clear. So it's massive that we keep winning. It does scream a draw for me, just because of the way the Europa League tie, we've got 2 days less, and the fact that Chelsea are very, very tight at the back at the moment, and they're playing a back 5. But it's a crucial game. We'll just sort of see. I mean, I don't really know how to take on this Chelsea side. I don't know how. I didn't really watch the Southampton game. I got bored of the Atletico game. The thing is, they're really tight at the back. They're good in possession, but they don't really break teams down. And they're playing a weird formation where Hudson-Odoi is playing right wing back, and it's caused a few problems for them when they are trying to defend. Joe, what's your take on how to beat this team? Because obviously they will lose a game, but it's just a matter of when, not if, but how.
It's tricky because what you've got here is you've got a Chelsea team now that's gone from a Frank Lampard team to a Thomas Tuchel team, and that's the difference. We're looking at, with all due respect to Frank, we're looking at a coach here who can organise a team, who can formulate a game plan to beat different types of opposition. And I said, to be fair, from a United perspective, I didn't want Frank to get sacked because I just thought, whoever came in next, whether it be Tuchel, Nagelsmann, you were always going to be dealing with a coach that actually just organised this team. And that's all it needed. Because, at times under Frank, you looked at Chelsea and you just thought, it's just chaos. Actually, there's nobody actually knows what they're doing. You look at the amount of games where they seem to concede 2 and 3 goals. There's lots of games where they conceded lots of goals. And it was just because they had no organisation at the back. What Tuchel's done is he's come in now and he's shored them up and he's brought an organisation to that back, to the whole team. And we know that Chelsea in that attacking area have got more than enough talent. But actually, sometimes it's very difficult for that front three to express itself if the defence at the other end's leaking goals. And that was always Frank's issue. I always thought if Frank could get that Chelsea team sort of defending better, then they would always be dangerous. And I think at that, there's a point in this season under Frank where they did stop conceding goals for a while, and they were on a great run. They were at the top of the league, and people were having the same conversations as we're about being title challengers. And it was no coincidence that they were winning games, but never really mastered that sort of shoring them up at the back and having an organisation. Now it seems to have swung the other way with Tuchel, and because he's brought that to the team, they seem to have maybe lost a bit of the spark going forward, because obviously you can see that they're probably concentrating more on how to stop the goals first and foremost, and then they'll worry about getting people like Werner up to speed and Havertz back in the squad, and that's when they'll look to start creating more. Because if you look at them, although they've been impressive, their fixtures haven't been very difficult since he's come in, Tuchel, and also it's not like they've scored lots and lots of goals. I don't think they've scored more than 2 in a game, I don't think, since he's come in. So it's not like they've been ripping teams apart either. I think it will. I like you. I think everything points toward it being a very cagey game. Tuchel's already said it's going to have massive implications for top four. We know that Solskjaer's usually quite pragmatic first as a coach, actually, in these sort of games. So, he'll look to maybe not lose. You could easily see it being 1-1, 0-0, or one team edging it by a goal here or there. I do worry about United in this game, because there's not a lot telling me at the moment that they are playing well enough to go and break down a well-organised Chelsea side. So if they don't score, obviously they don't win the game. So the best that they can hope for is a 0-0, which wouldn't be a bad result for United. You get that game out of the way and you move on. You keep that 6-point buffer to Chelsea. I know West Ham are still sort of within the vicinity, but I don't worry about West Ham too much, because I do think as the season goes on, they will drop off. Liverpool are obviously already 9 points behind us. So it's just keeping that buffer between Chelsea and Liverpool, whoever's in that fifth position at the time.
Well, of course, Leicester are playing tomorrow as well. And I think they'll play before us. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because they're playing Arsenal, and Arsenal are in certainly higher spirits than Leicester following the Europa League exit. And so you never know. You could probably say that Arsenal are favourites in that game, but I don't know. And it's probably one of the few times we're hoping Arsenal win a game. So if Leicester do lose, then a draw wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I still think we should probably keep up. I don't want, in 2 weeks' time, if we, drop points the next 2 games, that we then go to City and thinking, right, we've got to win, otherwise they win the league or something like that. I can't deal with that for another season.
Well, it won't be just that. If they drop points in the next couple of games, you'll be thinking you need to win, or you're going to have a fight on your hands for top 4, and nobody even was thinking that about a month ago. I think this next 3 or 4 weeks is really going to make or break United's season, because if you look at it, they've got the games now against Chelsea, Palace and City all away, sandwiched in between. Then they have a FA Cup tie against West Ham, which is obviously Leicester away. And then a home game against West Ham, sandwiched between 2 Europa League games. Mm-hmm. So in the next 3 or 4 weeks, if it went really wrong for United, they could easily see themselves out of 2 competitions, and also with the fight on their hands for top 4. So this becomes a real crucial period in the season. If they can navigate this, I'm not saying they can switch off and relax, but it should get a lot more sort of plain sailing, and the way should become a bit clearer for them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is going to be a big make or break run. Obviously, the way that things are going, it's looking like we're going to sort of be in the running for second place and cups and things, but we've got to get through the run, got to keep playing well, really keep players fit, because it's looking like maybe McTominay and Pogba and Van der Beek, they might all be back for the City game, but certainly not midweek. So we'll probably be playing the same midfield as well, so they've got to stay fit, because if we lose one of them, like you said, we could be in a big crisis.
The problem with the run of games they've got, Arjun, is you look at them now, and there's no game in there really where you can think, actually, if United can get away with playing poor in this game and probably win it. They won't beat Chelsea if they play poor. They certainly won't beat Man City next week. You could argue they could maybe have a dodgy performance against Palace and still nick something, and even maybe West Ham at home. But West Ham, have to be respected, they're having a great season. So I don't look at this next run of games and think they can, even if they're not quite at it, they'll still pick up points. I was looking at that Newcastle game thinking, if they weren't quite at it, which they weren't, they can still win this game. But you don't look at the next few fixtures like that, and that's a problem. Not only are they going to have to get the results, but the performances are going to have to be on point too.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, who are you putting in your lineup against Chelsea? I mean, are you gonna maybe match them with the back five, or would you stick to the back four and then sort of go from there? Really, what's your take?
No, we haven't seen United play a back five since Leipzig away, have we, in the Champions League?
Thing, you know.
Yeah, and that obviously went really wrong. I think when we played a back five against Chelsea, although a very different Chelsea now in the FA Cup semi-final last year, that didn't go very well. But yeah, I think we played a back five a couple of times at Stamford Bridge in the Carabao Cup and League, and it has worked really well. So it's a tough one. I'd be surprised if he goes back five because we just haven't played it for so long, and also personnel, I'm not quite sure. So he goes back four. If Bailly can do it, because obviously he played Thursday, I would be half tempted to get Eric Bailly in there just because of his, I'm thinking Werner with the pace sort of thing, especially down that sort of their left channel. That could be it.
Lindelof, that is not a battle I want.
No, but then again, you look at if someone like Giroud plays, then again maybe Eric Bailly, because obviously I think aerially Eric Bailly is a bit more commanding. I think if they play Giroud, which will be interesting when they do, because obviously you play midweek. If they play Giroud against, if Bailly's played, he can't think to himself, well, Maguire's on that side, so I'm going to move over to the other centre back because Bailly's there and he's equally as good in the air. But if Lindelof plays, he will just, well, if I was him with direct balls, I'm just putting myself on Lindelof all the time, stay away from Maguire, and he'll dominate Lindelof in the air. He's a very clever player as well. I don't know why Chelsea don't play Giroud more often, because for all the talent they've got up front, I think he's the best player for them at the moment to play number 9. I think it's really strange how he doesn't play more. I'm not just saying that because he scored a great goal in midweek. I was saying it before midweek. If you look at the job that he does at number 9, he does it better than anybody else in that squad. I remember Eden Hazard always saying when he was at Chelsea that he preferred to play with Giroud because he could work off him sort of thing, and he's very good at bringing other players into play, and that's what Chelsea need, because a lot of their creative players, Pulisic, Werner, play on the wing, and they wanted someone to bounce that ball into and receive it back, if you know what I mean, 1-2. So, it all depends on, obviously, Chelsea's team. Ollie won't know that, but I would like to see Bailly play just because of the pace in that Chelsea attack. Obviously, Maguire will come back. Luke Shaw's been brilliant. He'll play left back. And then, obviously, in midfield, it'll be interesting to see whether Matic holds up and can take his... Fred will play, obviously. He'll have to play. And whether Matic can keep his place if he's fit enough, or whether, like we said earlier, he may look at that Axel situation and think, can we do it again? And then the only other debate probably is, like you said earlier as well, is up the field with Dan James. Does he go Dan James? Has he confirmed that Cavani's not going to be fit, or do we still not know?
I'm not sure. I think it's certain that Pogba's going to be out. I think it's certain that McTominay is out and Van der Beek.
Yeah.
I think that means our midfield is, I think, almost certainly nailed on. I'm not sure whether I'm not sure he'll start Tuanzebe. I think it will be Matic, but whether he brings it off or not is the question. But I think Cavani, I don't think he trained, but I think the thing is that Ollie will sometimes say that and then say, we'll see, and then maybe he'll come in. But
but even if Cavani plays, I could still see Dan James maybe starting right instead of Mason Greenwood, just because Dan James has played so well. I mean, obviously we were talking about that front three being a fluid one. If Cavani doesn't play, it makes it really tricky, because obviously does Martial play? Does it become fluid like you said? I wouldn't like to call it, mate, to be honest, but I think it's getting less and less more difficult for Martial to start, even against teams that he's done well, because we're just not seeing enough from him at the moment, Arjun, for me.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because the way he was last season he was scintillating, he was stunning. I saw a stat that he said he won us 20 of our 66 points last season. So, I mean, he made a massive contribution to the team, especially when Rashford was injured. I think he was coming up with a lot of the goals. So it's one of those things that it's a shame. I don't understand how he's dropped so much this season. I still think there's plenty of time for him to find his form. It's just whether he can and what game's best to use him for. And this could be, I mean, if he scores against Chelsea, that would be a huge confidence booster for him. But it's whether you think he'll give you what you need, maybe energy and pressing, because the Chelsea defence, it's still the defence under Lampard. So the players are still the same.
Oh yeah, the individuals have got mistakes in them, especially someone like Rudiger. I think can get, especially up against pace. That's where United can look maybe at the week tomorrow. Get Rashford running against Rudiger, get him running into Rudiger's channel, whichever side that may be on, and see if they get any joy like that. Or even Dan James, obviously, with his pace as well, if he plays, he'll cause Rudiger issue. The only thing with James, obviously, sometimes we know that the final ball can be lacking. And in games like tomorrow, United aren't going to get a lot of chances in the final third to be clinical. So when they get something, they've got to pick the right pass or the right finish and score the goal, because with all due respect to Dan, he's not going to get to the byline 10 times in behind that defence and have a chance to pull the ball back and find somebody. He's probably going to get one or two opportunities. So you have to nail it and be clinical.
For sure, absolutely. One thing I would say is that I do like the idea of Dan James and Wan-Bissaka against Alonso, who, is obviously great, fantastic wing back, but defensively is still a little bit questionable. And then it's going to be, I think, if he plays the same way as he did against Atletico, it would be Hudson-Odoi as the right wing back with Azpilicueta, and them against Rashford and Shaw is again another interesting battle. So I think the wide areas for United are going to be important, because I feel like Bruno is going to be man marked by both Kovacic and Kante if they both start. So there is that. But predictions, we said it screams a draw. I think we could win. But it's just whether we might get a little bit of luck, maybe a mistake from a Chelsea player, and we defend really well. I think Bailly is a must, because based on Diagne and Calvert-Lewin and all sorts, Lindelof, he's not the best in the air. And even if it's Abraham's a strong player, he's a smart player.
Yeah,
Werner will run at you, so there is that too. Even if he doesn't hit the target, he'll cause problems. He's got a few assists as well this season, so there's that. And then Giroud, as you said, is one of the more underrated players in the Premier League history, really. So there's that. But I see United winning, but I'm going to be reserved and go for a 0-0 draw. For you, Joe, what do you see?
Yeah, I'm with you. The problem is I don't see United scoring enough to win this game, if you know what I mean. So if they score one, I don't think one will be enough to win the game, because everything about our defence, and especially with the quality that Chelsea can have up top, I think Chelsea will score in this game. So I think the best United can hope for is a goal. So I think it'll probably be 1-1. Mm-hmm. But I could easily see it being two teams cancelling each other out, like we touched on earlier, and even being 0-0, in a weird sort of way. So but yeah, definitely. I think 1-1 would be my score prediction, and I'll probably take that, to be honest.
Yeah, especially if Leicester lose, because then we'd be ahead of them by a point, and I think 3 goals or something, or maybe even probably a bit more lose. So there's that. But we'll move on now to Crystal Palace just briefly. Obviously, first game of the season was sort of demonstrated how sluggish we were. Really poor performances from the defence and sort of a stale attack. A few questionable things here and there. The penalty probably wasn't a penalty for me, and we should have had one as well. But it sort of, that result was not what we needed really at the beginning. But then Palace, they are really, really bad at points. The 7-0 against Liverpool, they strung a few attacks together, but then, their defence was just awful, and Liverpool played brilliant football. But then recently, again, they won 2-1. They played awfully again. They had 2 shots on target, scored 2 goals. I think it was their new signing from Germany, and obviously Benteke scored. No Zaha as well, which is a huge loss for them. I think they're playing later today, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe tomorrow. But the fact is that they still have dangerous players. They can still defend like a unit. They defend very well. But Joe, do you see this being a revenge mission? Do you see us winning this game, or do you see it being one where we struggle?
Well, if we get the Palace side that beat Brighton somehow with Monday night, then I'm pretty confident. But you just don't know. Palace do seem to be one of them teams that raise their game against us. So it's a tough one. They'll make it really, really difficult for United. There's no doubt about that. They're going to probably sit deep. They know what they're all about, and it's a tough one because it's a place where United generally seem to struggle. What I mean? They never make it easy for themselves. We saw Liverpool go and win 7-0 earlier in the season there. United always seem to have tight games at Palace. I don't know if it's to do with the pitch, the size of it, or whatever, but I think it will be scrappy. But I think off the back of this Chelsea game, it'll be a really important game because if they do draw like we're predicting, Arjun, that becomes a better draw against Chelsea if they follow that up with a win against Palace, obviously. Then, you can stomach a draw against Chelsea, but they can't sort of draw against Chelsea and then go to Palace and draw again or lose, if you know what I mean. It would then, because then you're going into the Man City game almost devoid of confidence against one of the worst teams to be playing against with no confidence.
Yeah. It does bring me back to memory in 2017-18 where we went to Palace away just before going to City away. We went 2-0 down and then 3-2 win in the 90-something minute. Matic
with a beautiful volley. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah,
he definitely did not slice at all.
No.
And then we go on and then we play City and then again 2-0 down, 3-2. So there is history there in that sort of run, but I can see it being a tough game. I mean, the thing is that Selhurst Park has been one of the more energetic crowds, and they've got all sorts going on there, and the crowd is brilliant. And I think every time I've been watching them at Selhurst Park United, or even when I've seen other teams play there, it's always just been a booming atmosphere. And so the thing is, they are missing that. When we played against them in August and we won 2-0, we would put out a very professional performance. The defense wasn't really tested, but we took our chances, limited as they were. So I think it's going to be, like you said, exactly that. We're going to have to take the chances we have because they're not going to make it easy for us for whatever reason it is. So we're going to have to, be at our very best, even, with the week in, week out kind of situation. They're obviously, I've just checked, they're playing tomorrow against Fulham. So they'll be playing, similar sort of day rest and things. So that's not really a concern. But predictions for that game, do you see it being a win?
Yeah, I do see United probably I think it'll be hard work, but I think they'll probably win maybe 2-0, 2-1, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
It's difficult to predict what the team's going to be. That's the other thing, Arjun, that's difficult because you just don't know how people are going to hold up from the game. On tomorrow, obviously on Sunday, and you just don't know how which of those players that have been injured are going to come back into contention. So if you can't see what the team's going to be like, it's very difficult to predict how a game's going to go, if you know what I mean. But I do think if United have a good side out, I think they will win it probably 2-0, 2-1.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think we can keep a clean sheet because I think the attacking players they have, we can deal with when we're actually fully fit and sharp.
Yeah.
So I think we could win that game quite professionally, not easily. I think it will be maybe 2-0. Maybe if we can steal an early goal, maybe hit them on the counter, because I don't think they can deal with us on the counter for sure. I'd like to see someone like Tellez start that game, maybe give Shaw a rest, especially if he's going to be up against any one of the wingers against City. It could be Mahrez, Foden, Sterling. It could be whoever Pep decides to put on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
I can see it being a really professional performance at Selhurst Park. Hopefully we'll have some positive sort of games going into the City game, because that's going to be crucial. It will show how far we've come, because we did the double against them last year. In fact, 3 wins against City, but it's not been so great this year. The 0-0 draw was actually probably a more positive performance than we expected, really. And then the 2-0 was, it was just them playing at their best, really. The 2 goals they scored as well were just sort of, it's what it is. So it's going to be a massive game going into that, and the results have got to show progress. It's got to show, we've got to build momentum for that too, because it doesn't look like they're stopping anytime soon. Obviously, they just won earlier today at West Ham. It looked like maybe, you never know, West Ham could cause some problems. They did cause problems, but they never really took all of their chances. So, I mean, I asked Suraj last week if the title's wrapped up. Joe, is the title wrapped up for you as a finishing note?
It's difficult. I mean, look, I don't think either United or Leicester, or certainly not Liverpool from where they are, Chelsea, I don't think any of us can be consistent enough. That's the key. I mean, the consistency that you're going to need between now and the end of the season to claw them back. You're probably going to have to win every game between now and the end of the season, or you're certainly not going to be able to lose. You're not going to be able to lose any games along the way. Because the thing that City are doing now is they're doing the thing that all good title-winning teams do when they get to this stage of season. They're not necessarily playing brilliant, but they're getting the job done and they're winning games. Against Arsenal last week, after the first couple of weeks, after the first couple of minutes, they weren't that convincing, but they got that early goal, and they looked threatening for about another 10 minutes, 20 minutes afterwards. But after that, Arsenal sort of come back in the game, but you never really felt they were going to score because now they have a good defence, Man City, where they can sort of sit on leads now. They were never able to sit on leads last season. That was their issue. You always felt that they were going to concede. But obviously with the acquisition of Ruben Dias and the return to form of John Stones, the partnership that they've formed, obviously people like Cancelo doing well back there as well, and the goalkeeper having a good year, it's just very difficult to score against them now as opposed to last season. And that's why they're so much stronger, and that's why I don't think they'll lose it this year, because I just think their defence is too strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they had that missing piece, which was, I think, their issue last year, was the fact that their defence could never really keep consistent. They were playing DMs in the defence. Laporte was injured, Stones wasn't at his best, Otamendi was just never really got back to whenever he was at his peak, which I'm still not sure when. But
as good as Diaz has been, it's just allowed other players, like you said, to play in their stronger positions. So, like Fernandinho now, okay, he can do a job at centre back, but over the course of a season, no. But if he plays at DM, he makes City a better player as a DM, regardless of who's at the back. But if he's at the back, he can't play at the back and as a DM also. And then obviously Ruben Dias has obviously helped John Stones. However he's done that, I'm not quite sure, but he's obviously helping him come on as well. So it's not just a signing of Ruben Dias alone. It's just the way that's allowed other players to play in the way. The fullbacks have got their mojo back at City now. You know what I mean? The fullbacks, you're seeing them go forward more. There's going into centre midfield. They couldn't do that last year because they were worried about exposing their centre back. So it's just the impact and the confidence that's given the rest of the team that's allowing City to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. I said it better myself. And it's about that thing that giving a bit of time, getting the manager to get his players that he wants. And you can see all the benefits City are having now. They could be on the precipice of a quadruple. You never know how things are going. They're obviously leading their tie against Mönchengladbach, and they're in a final for the Carabao Cup. And obviously still in the FA Cup, they've got Everton to come when we play Leicester. So you never know what's going to happen, but they are in a really good patch, and it's going to take a few players in the window to level them. But you think, they're obviously going to keep growing as well. So it's going to be difficult for any team to match this side. But stranger things that happened in the Premier League are certainly this year. Could, you never say never.
Yeah,
but
if there's going to be a slip up from a team 10 points in front, it's going to happen this season, Adam, because as we get towards the end of the season, if City go find the Champions League, will they all of a sudden hit a wall? You know what I mean? If it's going to happen any season, it's going to be this season. We've seen teams come from more points back than this at this stage of a season before. So with the conditions a lot more favourable to sustaining the lead, so actually it will be difficult. But there's just, at the moment, if you're asking me now, and I'm looking at the indications, there's nothing that gives me any confidence. I can't look at anything and be like, I can see where they might slip up, because I just can't. And same in Europe, to be fair. I'd never wanted them to win the Champions League because I like the fact that they've got that monkey on their back. But I can't even see anything that sort of stops them winning that either at the moment, to be fair.
Yeah, perhaps maybe capitulation against PSG or Bayern Munich, something like that. But they could take on that side, man for man, and come out quite easily a winner, because even Bayern Munich are having a slightly more struggle. They're struggling a little bit more this year. PSG are not doing too well in the league, despite smashing Barcelona 4-1. So it's a weird year for everyone. I think the thing is we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens at the end of the season, because anything could. But for now, we've just got to focus on our results and just getting the wins, getting the performances up, and hopefully getting a few players back before the game at the Etihad. But sorry,
just agreeing with you. Sorry, just agree. It's just about doing our job, Adam, because look, it's all about progress for us. Last season, we finished 30-odd points behind Liverpool. We're currently 9 points. That's a massive point swing. I think we were probably 19 points behind Man City, but obviously Man City got probably more points. They're probably going to get more points than they got this year. So you look at United's points tally. I can't remember what it was last year. Was it 70?
So I think it was 15 points behind City and 33 behind Liverpool.
Yeah, but actual United's points tally, was it in the 60s or was it in the... Say again?
66.
66. So you look at that and you think progress for United is add another 10 points on that. Hopefully that'll sort of maybe naturally close the gap to whoever does finish top. We won't finish so many points, but we're certainly not going to finish 33 points off top this year. And then obviously if you can win a competition as well, win a cup, that for me signals really good progress. And then in Ollie's third year, which is like usually the final year of a manager's shelf life these days, it seems, or coming toward the end, we will need to see a good summer in terms of recruitment and a push for a title next year. They will have to, that will be the next logical step. But it's very difficult from just getting into the top four last year on the first day to expecting United to mount a title challenge. But what we can expect is that they'll be closer and they'll have closed the gap, and they've done that. Can they have a cup to go with it? And then can they then show that progress even more next year? Then that shows that we're going somewhere, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I couldn't put it better myself. It's so crucial for the team to show the progress and replicate that in the market as well. But I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Joe, for joining me. It's a pleasure as always talking to you.
Yeah,
and we'll hopefully have some positive results for next week as well, and keep moving on and keep this excellent away run going.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions or any topics you'd like for us to discuss next time, please comment below on the live chat or on the Twitter poll. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter.